Aaron Rodgers will likely have to mentor a rookie on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the perfect rookie is Jalen Milroe. We'll discuss on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready. Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome in to the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with help from our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the madman, Tyler Rowland, joined today by Locked On NFL expert, the mastermind, Ross Jackson. On today's show, 2 weeks until the NFL draft. We're diving into some major draft conversations. I got a little bit of a hot take with my running back rankings, with my receiver rankings. We'll dive into that, but we'll start with Aaron Rodgers potentially mentoring a rookie quarterback on the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the perfect match is Jalen Milroe. Before we get into it, though, I do want to thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen and for being an everydayer here with us at the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay tuned for the Armada Player of the Week later in the show. But, Ross, you look at the quarterbacks in the draft, and to me, there is a clear top four before there's a drop-off in my interest. You have Cam Ward at the top. You have Shedeur Sanders at 2, Jaxon Dart probably at number 3, and then Jalen Milroe at number 4. And Milroe has been in the news this week. He accepted an invite to go to the draft, indicating he might think he's getting taken in the first round. I like Milroe as a prospect, maybe not quite in the first round. He's a guy I'd take a chance on in the third round, similarly to like Malik Willis a couple of years ago. I think that's a guy you could compare it to. But I know you're higher on Jalen Milroe than maybe the national consensus. What do you like about Milroe and his potential development?
Yeah, I think at the absolute worst with Jalen Milroe, you still get an elite athlete on your team and a guy that's an absolute playmaker. And now how you deploy him, how you utilize him, how you develop him as a quarterback, all of that is going to be the difference between that floor and ceiling, like we discussed with other prospects last week. But I think that a big thing when it comes to Milroe, and when I say that I'm higher on him, I'm with you. I don't think he's necessarily a first round guy, although not only did he accept that invitation, but the NFL sent him the invitation. So clearly the league maybe knows a little something there too, right? A little bit of a strange, not strange, but a little bit of an insinuation as a part of that. And so I think for me, the big thing is like getting the athleticism, and I like his demeanor as a quarterback as well. He's kind of down, kind of down to earth guy, military type and everything like that.
Yes,
but kind of like does everything by the book and expects that of his teammates. I think there's something there in terms of what his leadership capabilities could be as well.
No, I agree. When you're going to take somebody who clearly has a lot of talent, but definitely does need to develop, I think it's critical that they have the right mindset. They have to be a hard
100%.
worker, because part of that development is not only having a good plan for that player to develop them, but the player has to be bought in and understand that you're not coming in starter right away. You know all these guys, Ross. We're scrummy athletes. And when I was 12, I was thinking I'll be the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. I'm going to come in, win Super Bowl as a rookie. It's going to be I'm the greatest player of all time. Like, that's what these guys are hoping for in their mind. So he has to be bought into that plan. And you're right. He's a very diligent guy. He's a very dedicated player to the sport. He loves football. So I would be more willing maybe to take a chance on him in the second round for that reason, because I know he's going to be in it as well. But his pairing and his situation will be critical. And I think that the Steelers do make a ton of sense. And having Aaron Rodgers under the watchful eye of Mike Tomlin, I think that could be a good pairing going forward. And our guys from Locked On NFL Scouting, the draft dudes, talked about that pairing recently.
I mean, with all due respect to Pittsburgh, they've kind of been in these waters with the quarterback position and they still win. So I feel like Pittsburgh's another team we have to invoke into this conversation. Even if they were to get something done with Aaron Rodgers, does it matter? Like, if they're interested in Jalen Milroe, Rodgers is a 1-year deal.
Give me Rodgers in Pittsburgh with Milroe with Arthur Smith long-term. The Arthur Smith and the run game potential that you have there with a quarterback who can run like that. Maybe you can do some I'm not comparing these two players.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
I don't even know what you're about to say, but I am going to say
Could you do a Flacco Lamar package for Milroe with Rodgers in place? And then potentially groom and then dramatically change your offense in year 2 to tailor to the strengths of your player that you had in the system for a year that could that be a plan? I think a plan like that for a team like Pittsburgh, who's been routinely on the outside looking into the strike zone to draft a quarterback in the first round could make a lot of sense.
So I personally love that plan. And I get that Rodgers' personality may not lead us to believe that that would be a good fit, but I've continued to say throughout the offseason, naive as it may be, I just feel like we're going to see like Grandpa Rodgers, well, not us personally, Ross.
Right.
Out there will understand that, like, when you're a parent, you're harder on the kids. They can't eat candy for breakfast, but when you're a grandparent, it's like, wait a minute. You guys were so hard on me, and now you're grandparents, and now kids are eating candy for breakfast. Like, what's going on? I think Rodgers is going to be more Grandpa Rodgers and kind of let go of the wheel, especially when he goes to the Steelers, an organization he can trust. And that'll make him – look, Rodgers can't use that athleticism anymore. He's got to get the ball out quick. He's got to win with his mind. He's got to be accurate. And if Milroe could take some of that from Rodgers and then use the natural athleticism that he brings to the table, that would be the perfect way for him to develop. So I love that pairing. And me personally, Ross, rather than trading up for Shedeur Sanders, who has limited athletic talent, I would rather trade back even in the back of the first round, collect some extra picks, and take Jalen Milroe. If I know that Aaron Rodgers is my quarterback, I would rather trade back for Milroe than trade up for Sanders or stick and pick Jaxon Dart.
That's a really, really good. Yeah, I see where you're coming from with that. I'm going to be honest. When I came into this episode with you, my intent was to come in and say that I thought that Dart and Rodgers would be a better pairing than Milroe and Rodgers. But I realized that I was entirely wrong in that, because this pairing and the way that you're discussing it and the way that you're describing it does make perfect sense. And I'll tell you this on Aaron Rodgers too, or I'll say this on Aaron Rodgers too. I've had some people say things to me like, oh, I think every person that covers sports just wants Aaron Rodgers to retire. And I couldn't disagree with that more. Right. The thing that I really want for Aaron Rodgers is just to be able to play the game of football, period, and not have to do all the other stuff. Yes. I think I might have mentioned that before. I'm not sure, but like, I still think that is where we could see like the peak version of this version of Aaron Rodgers, Grandpa Rodgers, as you like to call him, which, yes, by the way, fantastic. And so I think that like this would be that scenario where he would be able to do that. You're right. It's an organization that he trusts. He's got good weapons. He's got a fantastic head coach, and he would be able to help to groom that next quarterback behind him. I know Aaron Rodgers isn't typically looked at as a mentor, but if there's any scenario and any environment rather where he's going to have that kind of change of personality, it's with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
And quite frankly, I think there is a lot to gain for Aaron Rodgers personally by going that route, because not only if you let go of the wheel a little bit, they'll remove like the Rodgers destroys organizations, wants to control everything. You can dial that back a little bit before you ride off into the sunset. You could probably win more games so you can leave on a better note than what your Jets years were. And if you mentor a guy like Jalen Milroe, you're going to repair some of that. Oh, he's a jerk. He hates his team. Like, no, at the end, he did the right thing. He paid it forward. You know, he did the right thing for the sport of football, and he took this guy under his wing. I think he could do a lot of public relations work to his image as he ends his career in a positive way.
Be a good part of his legacy, too, to contribute to the long-term success of a historied franchise like the Pittsburgh Steelers in that way without having to be the guy that literally drags the organization along.
Think about how many people would look at him more fondly based on this from the Steelers fan base that matters. There's a lot at stake here for Rodgers if he does this the right way. But with that in mind, it's not just quarterbacks in the draft, folks, wide receivers, running backs, and I got some spicy takes at the top of both position rankings. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Nissan. The Armada Player of the Week is brought to you by our friends over at Nissan, the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, we're going to take a look at a draft prospect, pick one guy that stands out, the guy that we believe showcases the strength and power needed to push an NFL team forward as we look ahead to next season. In this week's Armada clear-cut player of the week is Luther Burden. Look, I think Burden is the most explosive, exciting receiver in the draft, and I don't understand how he's being talked about as a guy who could slip to the second. Look, he's rugged, he's heavy duty, just like the Nissan Armada. You can go forth and conquer like Luther Burden. It's clear that our player of the week is ready to, again, go out and conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like the all-new Nissan Armada. Take the Nissan Armada, the Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. All right, Ross, let's continue today's edition of Locked On NFL. We talked about Jalen Milroe and a potential pairing with Aaron Rodgers in Pittsburgh, but now I want to talk about some skill position players, specifically wide receiver, because there's a little bit of a battle going on right now in the draft world as to who the number one wide receiver in the NFL draft is between Tetaroa McMillan and Matthew Golden. And Golden, coming out of Texas, was not really seen as one of the top wide receiver prospects in the draft until later in the year, and especially the college football playoff when he went off. But now a lot of people are arguing that Matthew Golden maybe should be the top receiver. And one of the people making that argument is our guy Keith Sanchez from Locked On NFL Draft.
Yeah, so I'm going to start with this. There should be a true conversation about who is wide receiver one. That's how I feel. Who is my wide receiver one? I'm going to stay with Chief Mac for the time being. But obviously the people that's been locked in with us from the very beginning, Matthew Golden is a guy that I've liked for a while, and people have known that, right? Since he transferred from Houston. I gave him a high second-round grade coming from Houston entering the season, right? And then even when he got to Texas, I was like, hey, he might be the better wide receiver out of him and Isaiah Bond. Let's pay attention to this, right? Obviously with both guys being transfers. And then Matthew Golden, what he was able to do this year. The reason why I'm saying this is because I kind of want to go against the notion of that I feel that because he ran a 4.29, I like him as a wide receiver now. That's not the case, right? I've always liked him. The 4.29 is a situation where I think that it's opened people's eyes, but I think if you really look at what he's done in his body of work throughout the year, you see a guy that can run detailed routes.
Look, he's right. Matthew Golden is a very good route runner. He's great at the line of scrimmage, releasing. He has great ball skills as well, which for a guy his size, 5'11", 193 pounds, to have really, really good ball skills, that's not something you see often. He catches the ball with his hands. He goes up and plucks it. Obviously, good production there at the end of the season, but the production is a little bit of a question to me. I don't think he's an elite athlete despite having such a good 40 time. The catch radius, while he does a good job going up and plucking the ball, he doesn't have super long arms to have a wide catch radius to really take full advantage of that. And he doesn't really do much after the catch. So I guess I'm skeptical of where he would go. And I'll be honest, not only do I not have Matthew Golden in the number one wide receiver conversation, I have Matthew Golden as wide receiver 4 in this draft class. I would put Tetaroa McMillan at the top. I would put Luther Burden second, who I think for multiple reasons, which we can discuss, he is being pushed too far down the board. It's outrageous. I would take Emeka Buka out of Ohio State as my wide receiver 3. And then I would have Matthew Golden wide receiver 4. Now, Ross, your team, the New Orleans Saints, probably in the need for a wide receiver at this point in time. That's definitely something that they could potentially do if it's not the favorite, But if you had the choice between Tetaroa McMillan, who, if you don't know, folks, out of Arizona, 6'4", 219 pounds, he's a big-bodied. He's a guy who kind of plays like Drake London. That's what a lot of people. He isn't quite as physical as you would think for a guy who's 6'4",
right?
But great movement skills, great hands, showed yard after the catch ability this year. If you had to choose between Golden or McMillan for your New Orleans Saints team, who do you think best fits them?
Yeah, McMillan, easy. I mean, look, the New Orleans Saints in this scenario have 3 smaller bodied, smaller framed, speedy wide receivers, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed. Right. And then they went out and they got Brandon Cooks. So the next thing that you want is, instead of your entire team being, or entire wide receiver core being all the same type of receiver, you want a different dynamic. And so Tetaroa McMillan, who's one of my top prospects for New Orleans, is that guy that makes a lot of sense for me. I will say that there are valid questions around Teteroa McMillan. Like you mentioned,
Yes.
the physicality question is
Cannot
absolutely
get off
there.
press.
Right.
Marshawn
right.
Lattimore from his prime with the Saints, for a comparison, Marshawn Lattimore would eat him alive as a rookie.
Yeah.
Cannot get off press.
Yeah, and that is shocking at 6'4", 200+ pounds.
Right,
And there's
exactly.
been a lot of question marks around Teteroa McMillan. I'm not even gonna go on the question marks around the film thing, because in case you didn't know, there was a whole thing about a video where he didn't like to
He
watch
doesn't
film,
like
blah,
to
blah,
watch
blah.
football.
It's fine. Most players don't, and that's fine. And
Right,
the
more
matter
guys than
is-
you think, which is
Yeah, right.
disappointing, but it's the truth.
Right.
You listening to this right now, there's a good chance that you like football more than most of the guys on your favorite team. That's just the reality.
It happens. It's a job, right? Like
It's a
like
job.
let
Yes.
it like let it be what it is. And so there's that. But I'm gonna push that off to the side because I don't really care about that. The thing that I do care about is, does he love the game? And that's one of the big question marks around him right now. And is that lack of physicality in connection to how he feels about the game, right? And so like that's the big question I would have to ask. But if I got that question answered and I felt good about it, for me, it's Teteroa McMillan over Matthew Golden. And to give Keith and Damian some credit as well over at Locked On NFL Draft, they've been on the Golden situation for almost an entire calendar year at this point. They were two of the first draft analysts to even talk about this guy in that way. And now we're seeing a bunch of people catch up. So I do want to give them some shine, but I do think it's Teteroa McMillan for me between those two.
And I agree with you there. And look, I think Matthew Golden's going to be a good player. When you have these draft discussions, if I say, like, I don't have Matthew Golden as high, then people are like, oh, you hate Matthew Golden. It's like, no, I think Matthew, Golden to me would be a guy that I would take near the back end of the first round, early in the second round. That's the talent level that I think he has and where he should be at. If you don't give me elite size, if you don't give me elite athleticism, to me, I always think of a guy like Robert Woods. You know, he was just really crafty, really savvy, great hands, physical player, checked all the boxes. Like, that's the kind of, and at the end of the day, I'm describing that guy. That's Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State, who may not have dynamic athleticism, maybe a slot guy, but great routes, good size, good physicality, smart route runner, sits down in the zones, like all those different things. So I trust I like Emeka Egbuka being a little bit bigger and being a little bit better of a route runner, in my opinion, being a little bit better of a blocker. Like, I want all of that if I'm going to take those chances. So I have him above. And then with Luther Burden, it's, hey, if I'm taking a guy in the top 15 of the draft, he better be explosive. And Luther Burden's character concerns, Luther Burden to me, Ross, is a guy who has character concerns for college. But when you get to he's not like a guy who's getting in a ton of trouble off the field, but he just doesn't want to go to school and doesn't like that he has to be in the classroom all the time. And, you know, he wants this and he wants that. And they just totally, it looked personal, Ross, when you watched the tape of Mizzou last year, the way that they phased him out of the offense from 2023 when he looked like the best receiver in the country, or one of them at least. Like, this guy's going to be a top 10 pick next year, no matter what. They just completely phased him out and only used him on short routes and didn't let him attack vertical and didn't feature him in the offense. And it's just like, why? Was it like you're angry with him because of the way he's acting out behind the scenes off the field, so you're not going to feature him? It's like, we're not going to reward you with touches if you're acting out behind the scenes and not showing up on time and not doing this and that. You know, like, it's speculation. I don't want to act like any of this stuff is true. I'm just like, what could be the off-field football character concerns with Luther Burden? I guess I just don't care. I think this is a problem that gets solved immediately when he becomes a professional football player. He didn't go to Missouri to play school, to steal, I think it was Cardell Jones who said that for Ohio State. So, like, Luther Burden is the guy I think that we're overthinking the off-field stuff. He's a dynamic playmaker, and I think he's going to go in the first round, and I would take Luther Burden over Matthew Golden personally.
Yeah, I think I would have him up there too. I like the explosive nature of his abilities. I like what he can do with the football in his hands. I love his attitude and his demeanor on the field. He has that I'm better than you kind of demeanor. Yeah, and he absolutely is. But I want that wide receiver that feels that way. I want that wide receiver that knows I'm better than you. One other guy that I'd like to add to this conversation just very quickly, and I just want to acknowledge, is Iowa State wide receiver Jaden Higgins. He's another one that's close to that tier 1 of wide receiver for me. There's a great photo of him as he's running with the football in his hands, pointing to the defender that he's about to lower a shoulder at. I love that kind of play demeanor and that attitude. Big body guy, 6'4", 200+ pounds, 4.47 speed, good route runner, excellent blocker, constant contributor. You love all that. He's not a dominator in the way that Tetairoa McMillan has proven he can be in some games, but I still think that he has a lot of the things that are just those little slivers of what you look for that separate a tier 1 and tier 2 type wideout.
No, I'm with you 100%. Higgins may not have the speed and explosion of a guy like McMillan. He doesn't offer that yards after catch ability. It's not really a guy who's going to be super elusive, but you're right. At 6'4", 215 pounds, to be long, to run routes as well as he does at that size, he can sit down in the hole in the zone. Great hands, too. He catches with his hands. He's not a body catcher, and he does not drop the football. You get all of that. Remember, the scouting conversation is what can he do? Not what he can't do.
Yep,
and
100%.
he maybe can't do some of the things that McMillan can do, but what he can do at his size, I think he can be a number 1 X receiver for a team. But you're right, probably early second round for Higgins. Makes a ton of sense. But with that being said, more draft hot takes. This time we're going to running back. All right, Ross, let's cap off today's edition of Locked On NFL. Draft heavy, folks. It's that time. We're less than 2 weeks away from the NFL draft. I don't know if you can tell, but we're fired up. I love the draft.
My favorite time of the year.
Love the film.
My favorite time
love the projection. Yeah, it's great, man. It's great. Even when you get things wrong, which, hey, you know what? In the draft, you get things wrong. That's just part of the game. But something I'm willing to be wrong about is my view on the running back position. I've talked about Ashton Jeanty. We've had a spirited discussion about Ashton Jeanty that I think Ashton Jeanty will be a good player. I just don't think he will be an elite running back in the NFL. He'll be a good running back. And Ross disagrees, and that's fair. We will see. But the question really is after Ashton Jeanty, because even with my thoughts on Jeanty, he's still clearly RB1 in this class. But who is RB2? And a lot of people have been talking up Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina. Look, over 200 pounds, physical runner, great demeanor. He can catch the ball out of the backfield a little bit. I wouldn't say that he's, a pure 3-down running back or anything like that, but he can hit the home run. He's just a good physical runner who can kind of be versatile and do it all for you. But I actually don't have Omarion Hampton as my RB2, despite some people acting like he may be. It's another thing where people are like, Omarion Hampton, he might be RB1. No, I think he's closer to RB3 than he is RB1 because Travion Henderson from Ohio State is RB2 for me in the draft. And look, I'm not the only one who thinks so. We go back to Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes and my guy, Kyle Krabs. He's with me with the top 5 running back rankings.
4 out of 5 names that we have share the top 5. I have Ashton Jeanty at 1. I have Travion Henderson at 2 when I did my
let's go.
Brother.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all.
Let me finish the 5 and then
I've heard enough. Thanks for being here, everybody. We'll catch you tomorrow.
Quinshon Judkins I have as my 3, and then Omarion Hampton I have as my 4. Those 3 are all second round grades at the running back position. And then I have Caleb Johnson as my RB5.
Let's go.
Scheme specific starter, right? And then put him in the wide zone like you ran at Iowa. Bigger body guy that does it, that has sufficient speed. He's got really good vision, one-cut runner. But Travion Henderson, man.
Baller.
Home run hitting speed, explosive playability, involved in the passing game, good vision, good contact balance, heavier than you think he is at 208. It's a healthy size.
Doesn't fumble ever.
Doesn't fumble ever.
Yeah. Doesn't fumble ever. I think he had 1 fumble his freshman season and never fumbled again at Ohio State.
He said, I ain't doing that again.
Never. I'm done. But Everything they said there is right. He has such great speed. He's so explosive. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can run routes out of the backfield. He can set up his blocks. His ability to set up his blocks and his vision and to cut off. We saw it in the college football playoff at the end of the first half. And I think it was the national championship game where he takes that screen and he sets up his blocks. His vision, he just has a full vision of the field at all times. Look, I like Hampton. Again, physical, power back, good hands. He's a versatile guy. I think he can be the lead back for a team. But again, the explosive ability is what I'm drawn to. And I will take the explosive ability of a Luther Burden or the explosive ability of a Travion Henderson over the sort of solid reliability of Omarion Hampton or a Matthew Golden. Like if I'm picking that high, I cannot take Omarion Hampton 12 overall, like Cowboys. I can't take Matthew Golden 12 overall Cowboys. Like that's just too high for me for those players. And I like these other players much better.
This is a guy who had 144 carries last season, Tyler, and had 10 rushing touchdowns. This dude is an absolute home run hitter. And he touches. Here's the other thing that I like about him a lot. An average of 147.5 carries over the course of his 4 years over at Ohio State. There are so much tread left on those tires.
Yes.
And this becomes one of the big concerns around guys who are top running backs this year's NFL draft class. Don't get us wrong. Ashton Jeanty, Omarion Hampton, so many on those motors.
Cam Scattaboo.
Right. Yeah. Perfect example too.
A lot of people know. Yeah. So many carries. You know, Ollie Gordon from Oklahoma State. Same thing.
Yep. Although I'll say this, Ollie Gordon got that Cadillac Williams in him. He'll be all right. You can run that one 200 miles and 200,000 miles and you'll be okay. That dude
I'm with you there.
Durable. But with guys like with a guy like Travion Henderson, the other thing that I really like about him is he's a 3-down back. You can have him on there first down. You can have him on there second down because he's incredible vision setup, like you said, in terms of the blockers, but you could have him on the field for passing downs too, because not only can he catch the ball out of the backfield, but he is a phenomenal pass blocker, blitz pickups, all these other things. He will help your protection unit. He'll help your quarterback stay clean. And so the fact that he can catch passes, the fact that he can run routes, the fact that he's got the track speed, and the fact that he can sit in that backfield and block and keep your quarterback clean, that is so hard to pass up. That's the type of stuff that NFL teams absolutely love, that fans don't often pay attention to, right? You see that sometimes when there's a highlight and, Kurt Warner pops up and he circles the running back, saving the quarterback over the top, right? It's always the former quarterback analyst. It's like, look at the block. And you love that. You love that. But NFL teams see that all the time. And when you have a guy that can do that, what does it mean? It means you can have him on the field for every game situation, every down and distance, everything. And so when you bring a guy into your culture, you bring a guy into your system that comes in and can do all those things and averages 147 carries a year, there's so much that you would feel comfortable doing with him. And you know that he'll help to reinforce the culture of what you want, because no block, no rock, right? You got to do the dirty work in order to do the fun work, and he does it all.
There are some clear examples of effort at certain positions. Running back, pass protection. Wide receiver,
100%.
Run blocking.
Yep.
Offensive line, sustaining blocks. Defensive line, running to the football when it's not a run up the middle. Like, is he going to pursue the ball and run to the football, stuff like that? Like, there are clear tells. It's like playing basketball or playing defense in basketball. It is truly just an effort-based thing. If you give maximum effort, you're going to be at a decent level of production and a usable level of production. So I'm with you there. I do want to mention the other two running backs in the top 5 that we didn't mention there. Quinshon Judkins reminds me a lot of Najee Harris. Like,
oh, sure. Yeah.
Not super explosive, but just a powerful runner that will get downhill. I think he can be a 1,000-yard back, a lead back in a committee, but you're going to want that spell back who has more explosion. That's why Judkins and Henderson were such a great duo for Ohio State on the way to the national championship. Go Bucks. But
what a good point, by the way, for both of those guys. I do too. But real quick, just another good point on Travion Henderson as well as Quinshon Judkins. They know how to operate in a running back tandem, in a committee, which is what the NFL is trying to do.
100%. And I think that's why guys come out of Ohio State so prepared, because there is so much other talent. It's very similar to an NFL situation. So they're not caught off guard thinking they're big man on campus. Like, no, there's a freshman running back that just showed up, 5-star, who's just as cool as I am. Like, I better work hard to play special teams.
Right.
So that's a good thing about Ohio State prospects and some of the bigger colleges. You get that kind of level of competition already in them. But again, do want to give love to Caleb Johnson, who is my RB5 in this class. 6'1", 224 pounds, a true power back. To me, kind of reminds me of Michael Turner from the old Atlanta Falcons days. Zone running back, big bodied, barrel chest, big thighs, run through. Not a guy who's going to be great as a receiver, doesn't have great speed or wiggle, but good vision, good mental ability when it comes to playing running back, setting up the blocks and the tempo and all that. So Caleb Johnson, a guy who I think could maybe get drafted a little higher than people think. And people, especially for fantasy, like our dynasty fantasy folks, check out Locked On Fantasy Football with the data queen, Michelle Majuk. They've been killing it over there, getting you ready with draft content as well. But Caleb Johnson is a guy that if you're doing some of these best ball dynasty drafts and stuff like that, take Caleb Johnson. A lot of people may not know about him, but he could be kind of a lead power back for a team going forward.
Yeah. I'll throw one more name out there, a guy that I just really, really like. Kansas State running back, DJ Giddens. One of my favorite running backs in this year's class. Does not get
who he
any
reminds me
shine
of,
at all.
Ross?
Who's that?
DeMarco Murray. That's who he
I
because
love
he's got that high cut running style with the high hips.
Yep. I think he's great. I think he's going to do very well in the league. It's going to depend on the situation that he lands in. That's true for every draft prospect, but he's just somebody I wanted to give a quick shout out to. I mock him to the Saints almost every mock draft that I can because I think he'd be such a good complement to what's already in established backfields. When what your established backfields have is athleticism and you're looking for a unique blend of athleticism and power, I think you can find that in DJ Giddens.
Yeah, 100%. I've seen Darren McFadden comparisons to him because of the high cut run style. I think that makes a lot of sense. I like the DeMarco Murray one too, but yeah, DJ Giddens, very interesting player. Ross, I'm not going to let you one up me when I'm the host of the show. So I got one for you guys. Lan Larison out of UC Davis, Division II UC Davis. This guy is like the Division II Christian McCaffrey, folks. Running back out of UC Davis. Lan Larison. I'm just throwing that in there. Shout out my guy, James Foster, No Flags Films. I love the guy. He's going to go day 3. Yeah, James does a good job. But anyway, with that being said, Lan Larison, that's a deep bag sleeper for all my folks out there with running backs. But with that being said, again, draft less than 2 weeks away. Locked On NFL Draft, Locked On NFL Scouting, Locked On NFL. Make sure you get subscribed, stay subscribed. That's going to do it for us today, though, folks. I am your host, the Madman Tyler Rowland, for my co-host, the mastermind, Ross Jackson. As I tell you every episode, thanks for tuning in and stay safe out there.